All right, hey folks, we're going to keep building Spelljammer content. I have a homebrew table that I run my weekly game as a DM for 5e, and we are currently developing a new campaign for a Spelljammer Eberron style game. Give me a second here to check my signal, make sure I'm coming through clear. I'm going to go through my intro spiel, and then we'll get to work here for an hour or so. So let's see. Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3. It looks like my thing is on hold here. Are we live now? It looks like... All right, good. We're live. All right, awesome. Let me go ahead and do my updates here online to punch my signal across the interweb. And while I do that, I will try to entertain y'all with my backstory here. So my name is Theurgy. Hey, I create role-playing games. I illustrate them, and I publish them online. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition since the release of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, when I realized that the design principles of 5e are to take new settings and ideas and make them work within the mechanics that already exist inside the core rulebooks, instead of expanding and creating new rules as they had for Saltmarsh and Descent into Avernus. They created new vehicle mechanics for boats and then for trucks. So we assumed that we'd be getting new rules for flights, and well, that's Spelljammer, so we didn't get new mechanics for Spelljammer flight, so I took it onto myself to create this supplement, Spelljammer Combat and Exploration, where it takes aerial vehicle combat and space combat and astral space, wild space, and expands on it. I first started building homebrew when Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica came out, and they, instead of making a color mana system from Magic the Gathering, where Ravnica came from, they instead made Ravnica through the 8 schools of magic and spell slots as 5e. And then we saw that again with Spelljammer. Instead of building flight combat, they just defaulted back down to normal 5e combat mechanics that already existed in the game, much to people's disappointment. So these mechanical, what's the word that you would use? Being shy on creating new mechanics to add flavor to the narratives that they're building. Since Wizards wasn't creating those, that's what got me into making homebrew for 5e. And I do brew for other systems as well, but currently we're working on 5e. Spelljammer has been our focus here on the channel for the past year, and this thing is just about ready to publish. So big shout out to the Spelljammer Preservation Guild here on subreddit. Fantastic channel to hang out at, get ideas about Spelljammer. For folks that are on the Twitter X platform, I'm at Theurgy. You can follow me there for when I'm live in the future. Best way to support the channel: like, subscribe, hit the bell notification to get information about when I am live in the future and different things that we're producing. I like this book cover we created back in episode 15. So here's the full playlist. You can go back all 300 some odd episodes to see the start of all that. But so without further ado, we're going to continue diving into this. This is our workbench here for the campaign being built. It's a read-only document currently, but once we have a few adventures under our belt at my home table, if the rules are sussing out to work, if they don't work, we'll try something else. But it feels like they can, so we're going to stick with this and play test it out a little bit. It's all about ability checks. Because we have a short game session with a lot of people in it, we can't afford to have the normal action economy that you would see inside of a 5e combat with 6 players taking 3 hours. We don't have that kind of time each session, so we need faster combat resolution, or just conflict resolution that could be combat, exploration, or social pillars of adventure that can all be resolved through ability checks. So a lot of this document is looking at both active and passive checks that can be made. Passive checks being made by your guild and the NPCs that you are overseeing in the background as downtime activities to perform these tasks for you, so that you have different activities that are happening on multiple fronts that create the seeds to new adventure plot hooks. Each effort that the guild takes to advance the causes of the guild, they're either successful with an ability check or they fail the ability check and thus create complications. Those complications then either require additional resources spent by the guild to resolve that complication, or you have to the team can decide to resolve that complication directly themselves by activating characters to then enter the instance that complication as a sort of like if you were talking about Diablo or like Path of Exile, having maps, like map instances, unique encounters in the larger frame of the adventure. That's what these complication instances are, where maybe you're having a border conflict, and instead of your guild being able to passively resolve the conflict with an ability check, instead the ability check fails, the conflict escalates, which could then be resolved at the player's discretion as a ship combat scenario and overwhelming them with military force. It could be a diplomatic mission where the team is going in to have conversation with our negotiations with the contesting nation or warlords that are brushing your border, or you could perform an espionage mission where you are attempting to gain information to give you an edge. I would say in that situation, that borderline situation, it would probably be either diplomacy or combat that would most likely resolve it. Delving wouldn't do much good, because delving is when you take a delve team into an asteroid to clear monsters out and secure an area for your mining crew to come in and then passively mine those resources for your guild. And espionage doesn't directly make sense, but I could see how if you fail at a diplomatic or a combat mission to resolve the initial complication is leading into a diplomacy or a combat scenario. And I could see that if whatever choice it is that they make between diplomacy or combat, if that fails, I could then see them instead activating an espionage mission. Like, if they chose combat and that failed, that means that their their combat squadron wasn't able to force the border dispute out through military power. Probably means that the ships got eliminated, which means that you could have captured pilot or crew that could be interrogated to get information about your guild. So your espionage mission could then go in to either retrieve or eliminate those pilots before they reveal information. And then, so if it was combat, that failed, great. If it was diplomacy that failed, maybe your diplomats are captured, or they're summarily kicked out, or you're not able to ascertain what exactly it is that they want that's going to create a resolution at the border. So then you would activate an espionage mission to go try to find out, without asking them, what is actually going on here, what can we do? So I'm trying to go with two types of encounters, and whichever one the team chooses, if that fails, then they have a third option, so then they can try again. And if that second mission fails, they have the final third option to try to resolve tasks again. And say they succeeded at third task, that could put one or the other tasks back on the board to then choose from to try to climb their way out of that hole. So we're delving and climbing back out again. So even though delving doesn't apply here, the idea of delving in kind of does. I think that's kind of fun. So what we're doing, we've already got some preliminary information about how each of these tasks work. And there's only essentially 8 tasks or types of ability checks that the team is going to be making during the campaign. It's just a matter of what overall task are they performing and how good are their characters at for completing those tasks. So if they stick with the same team all the time and they've got a bunch of like combat characters that are going into a diplomacy mission, might not be that good. They could potentially swap out characters to bring in like espionage and diplomat characters specifically into that scenario. Like delving could use combat and delving and espionage, for instance, but maybe diplomacy doesn't make much sense. Diplomacy, combat doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Delving doesn't make necessarily a lot of sense, but espionage and diplomacy does. So we could rebuild the team. They can just activate new characters, NPCs, to become characters to perform these missions if the current character they've been running doesn't match up with what they want to do. So that's some of the ideas there. So these are general task activities, the difficulty and the DC that you have to roll on your ability check to hit that difficulty. If you fail the roll, the level of complication you create is your result minus the actual difficulty. So if the difficulty is, say, at first rank is a difficulty 5, if you roll below a 16, you're creating a complication. If, like, say you roll a 7, that is a fail degree by 1, 2, 3. So you will have created a 3rd degree difficulty on top of having the 5th rank difficulty. Now are both active at the same time. Each challenge has a number of successes equal to its difficulty. So a difficulty 5 challenge has to have 5 degrees of success. Even if you fail a check, it counts as at least 1 tick of success, like scratching off 1 heart off of that gear. So by the time you get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when you get to 5 successes, that difficulty is resolved. But every time you fail, you're potentially creating new complications that also have to be resolved. So if I were to roll, if the difficulty is 5, and I rolled, say, a 24, that'd be a difficulty of 7, which is above 5 by 2. So that would count as 2 successes towards the 5 that I need. And each player is making an attempt individually to affect the difficulty of that task. And so each individual character may be specialized or ill-equipped to handle that particular challenge, but everyone gets a turn. So we just rotate through all the players, and we just keep rotating through like a wheel. And every time it's your turn, you're going to do the best you can with what options are available to you to try to get a success. And if you fail that success, you're creating a new complication. So now the team has to divide their attention between the main task or the complication. Sometimes you can't continue progress with a task until you remove the complications. Sometimes you can get rid of the actual goal, and that still leaves you with a bunch of complications that you still have to resolve. So adding complications is stacks on difficulty. And if it's in combat or espionage, then the complications that you incur could be damage or making stealth more difficult. So like in espionage, whenever your team fails, you ratchet up the difficulty. In combat, when your team fails, you reduce the number of hit points that you have. When your team gets to when your character gets to 0 hit points, they're dead and you have to make a new one. There you go. In espionage, if your team fails so badly that you're incapable of succeeding your check, you're eventually going to whittle your preparation. Instead of hit points, it's preparation. That gets ground down to 0, and you're no longer prepared to handle the challenge, and you get captured. And when one person gets captured in an espionage, in a heist mission, the entire mission is cached. So you have to keep your team from getting disrupted. So these are some of the ideas that we have built into these. There's a very basic scaffold. It's using the same frame of resolution and creating complications. So right now we are just looking at further developing and refining how each of these tasks work, so that we have as much information going in, because we're basically playtesting a new game here. It's all ability checks. The same ability checks that you're used to in D&D or even Pathfinder, D&D 5e, 3e, 4e, Mutants and Masterminds, even Gamma World 4e. They all use this same ability check system where you're rolling a d20, you're adding your proficiency and your modifier, and then you're looking for a target number. This depends on which d20 system you're using to set what the difficulty is. Since 5e is my route right now for building games, I use the 5e scaffold. So here's your scaffolding. The bounded accuracy of 5e dictates a target number from 1 to 31. And this is how you break that down by difficulty, scaling from 0 difficulty up to a maximum of 10 difficulty. And of course, characters can eventually roll above a 31 through effort. And if they do, that makes high-end tasks easier to perform as they gain higher rank. There's 5 ranks, 1 to 5. as well as a 0 rank when your character is just like it doesn't cost you anything to recruit 0 rank characters. But if you want to have a team that is that has advanced levels to handle a threat that's equal to the rank of their character, then the team has to spend guild resources. You get guild resources by extracting or from asteroids to then get refined and then get a payout, which then is converted into a resource for you to spend on various other territories, tasks, or to gain like inspiration dice. A resource can be spent to give everybody on your team an inspiration die to use collectively. So if you have 5 people on your team, if your guild spends a point of resources, then everyone on the team gets gets an inspiration die. So 5 players on a table, that's 5 dice that can be re-rolled at any time if they don't like the result to help push them towards success. But again, the reason these tasks are being performed in the first place is because your team wasn't able to gather resources. So you're going in to try to gather and reclaim resources that have been that you've been blocked from getting because your guild wasn't able to extract them. So in a way, you're getting resources, you're then spending resources to go get resources. So you could, in a very Numenera, hey Ked, in a very Numenera sort of way, you could gain a level, or you could spend all of your experience points during the game doing conditional modifiers so that you can succeed specific tasks. So you could end up walking away from a campaign and not gaining any experience points at all, but it furthered the storyline of your guild and the conflicts that you're facing so that you're building this interior storyline, this personalized storyline to what your team is attempting to achieve. So as you gain ranks as an organization, you'll be able to distribute more and more resources to be able to take advantage of more things. So, we doing math? Let's do some math. We're going to do some math, but I need to put you guys on hold real quick. I got something I have to check on. Sorry about that. Weirdness at the door. So let's see. Yeah, okay, so not so much math right now. But here's the characters in your guilds. Characters can be 0 level, and then you have a guild that gains ranks as well. Hold on, there is weird stuff going on in my world. Hold on, BRB. All right, so let's see. I think I'm going to be interrupted by somebody knocking at the door. So when that happens, I will step away from the mic for a second. But okay, so you have your D20, which is normal resolution. You've got your rank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have effort, which is a D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, as opposed to your proficiency of +2, +3, +4, +5. That's just proficiency dice, which is a modifier, is a variant rule in the DMG. So let's see. So here's the range of results that you can get. And as you gain levels, the difficulty increases. So like at first rank, this is generally where we're going to be, 3, 4, or 5. That's generally the pocket that we're going to be in, which with a D20 plus D4 plus 1, a range of 3 to 25, it's possible, it's not improbable that you'll be able to succeed at these tasks, but it's equally probable that you're going to create new complications along the way, which just adds a new threat to the board for your team to deal with. And as you gain higher and higher levels, like you can see here at 5th rank, you can crack a 37 on a difficulty of 31, but you're going to have to roll really fucking well Otherwise, you're probably going to be down in this range someplace, creating, again, new complications that the team then has to spend time resolving. So that's the general idea. But right now, we just want to try to go into each task and resolve them a bit more cleanly. So let's see. Acquisition is a path. There's 4 industries that we're using: commerce, lore, loyalty, and military. Commerce deals with economy, trade, and wealth. Involves delving into an asteroid to secure it for mining operations, and a passive task of extracting or from asteroids to gain new wealth. Lore is knowledge, education, intrigue, so that's active task of espionage, and a passive prospecting, which is to determine what type of rocks, what type of asteroids, what kind of ore is inside the asteroids that are inside your territories. Loyalty, which is where acquisitions is at, deals with culture, patriotism, tradition, and it performs tasks of diplomacy. And then the task of acquisition is gaining new resources or recruiting people. Your loyalty is a matter of like, how trustworthy are you? How dependable are you? What kind of reputation does your guild have? Good reputation means you can recruit better and stronger allies, better resources, better deals. And the military is armed forces, security, valor, which is combat, either ship or hand-to-hand combat. And then scouting, which is basically like patrolling or defending your territories with starships or other vessels against enemy marauders in your territory. So passive tasks are performed by your guild, and it's basically these generate adventures. You'd set a task that you want to achieve. I want to extract wealth from asteroids. That'll be a single die roll. You'll either be successful or you'll create complications. If you succeed, you get more resources. If you fail the task, the resources are there, you just can't get them yet because there's something getting in the way. You then have to figure out how to resolve the complication. Prospecting, you either find out what's floating in orbit or it's going to have to be something you have to go in and discover for yourself. Acquisition, you can either gain new resources or you can negotiate for them. Scouting, you can either discover if there's threats within your territory or you miss them. So, there's the door. I'll be right back, guys. Sorry, bad timing with delivery. So everything is resolved. Let's see. Yeah, so those are the 4 industries that drive the tasks that we have. Passive tasks are generally not entertaining adventure stuff. They're more administrative background things that can be resolved with a single die roll. And the further away the team, like here's your orbit and here's different clusters, the further your territory is from the planet, the higher the difficulty it is to prospect and to scout. So that's what ratchets up difficulty there. And when you discover what type of ore are inside of the asteroids that are inside your territory, the difficulty of extracting them increases with the value of the material that's in the asteroids, which we've noted here down below and extracting before. Here's the different types of material that can be inside of asteroids, and here is the difficulty of extracting them. And if you're successful, here's the amount of resources that you can withdraw from each one. So each territory that the team only controls 3 territories to start, and depending on what is in each territory during a 10-day period of time, that's how many resources they gain from that particular thing. You could pick up another territory that's adjacent to orbit for only 1 point of resources, but a second degree of distance from hub costs 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25. And 25 at 5th is the max. So you could theoretically expand infinitely out away from the planet, but it's going to cost you 25 resources for each square that you attain further out. It's only 1 square here for 1 resource, 4 resources, 9 resources, 16 resources. And again, you're only gaining anywhere from 1 to 5 resources per square. So if you're pulling in, like, say, copper and silver, copper gives you 1 resource, silver gives you 2 resources. Like, if I get copper, silver, that's 4 points of resources that I could get if my team can successfully extract ore from all 3 of those territories without complication. That would be enough for my team to buy another second rank orbit to, again, add on so they can mine more resources. But it also creates more potential complications because you have to scout and prospect each territory that you control. So as you get more and more territories, you're making a passive roll for each territory. You could have 6 territories and you could extract wealth from 4 of them without problems, but 2 of them have complications. So until you resolve those complications, you can't gain any resources from those territories. So you're constantly, these can all be just resolved passively by your guild handling these things on their own without the player's involvement. But if time keeps going on and they keep failing at a task, that complication is going to continue to grow and grow and grow until you potentially lose that territory altogether. So the game really is about attrition and exploding problems. And how can the team spend resources and utilize their adventuring time to mitigate those complications and conserve resources so they can purchase up and advance their territories as well as advancing their rank. So the guild's at first rank. They're first rank in all 4 industries, except we're starting that second rank in commerce, and they're only first rank in lore, loyalty, and military. So for them to advance their military, they're first rank, so they already have 1 resource invested in their military operation. They would then have to invest 3 more points to get their military up to second rank. Doesn't sound that difficult, but then from there, they put in 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. Now all 4 industries are second rank. The guild is now second rank as a total. They can now start advancing different industries to third rank, and then fourth rank, and then finally to fifth rank. So it'll cost 9 points for them to get all their industry up to second rank to become a second rank guild, and then they need 9 points per industry, and they got 4 in each, so it's 5, 5, 5, 5. That's now 20 resources that they have to invest into all 4 territories. So to get the third rank, it's 20 points plus 3 and 3 and 3. It's 29 points total they have to spend across the entire organization to get those ranks up. But meanwhile, they still only have 3 territories, and they can only gain a number of resources per territory at most their rank of commerce, which right now is second. But in addition, the type of ore they're extracting, they might find a rock of adamantium or dragon shards coming into their territory. But if they're only a second rank commerce organization, they can't get all 5 resources. They can only get 2. So they have to keep advancing the rank of their commerce so that their extraction is more efficient to be able to pull the higher level stone, the higher value stones. So although it takes 29 points for them to advance to third rank as in all these industries, if at best they're only pulling 2 or 3 points from each of these, it would take them many cycles of going through to be able to gather all those resources without spending any of them. So it doesn't sound like that will be for everyone, but honestly, I like where this is going so far. Personally, I see this is something I would use. This is just a passive thing. These are all the things I'm describing right now is just something that everyone can just roll the dice between games. This is just advancing the state of the guild. This is just what's the state of the world, because they'll have a goal. I want to extract wealth. Well, if you fail the ability check to extract wealth from territory C, it might have 2 points of resources waiting for you, but it had a complication, which could be monsters that you didn't know about inside the asteroid ate your mining crew, or pirates have captured your barge, and now what should have been delivered to your refinery has gone missing. Or war has been declared in that territory, and now any ships that are in the area are attacked by privateers. That could be something that the team could decide to let the guild handle as a downtime activity with a single die roll, as a diplomacy check or a military scouting check to try to push away enemies or to negotiate peace in that region. And if that fails, it gets even worse. So at some point, if things keep going wrong, the players are going to want to activate characters to go in and actually have an adventure instant, which could be a dungeon delve into a rock to find the missing miners, or to clear the monsters out so they can get their wealth. Or if there's pirates in the area, you jump into your X-Wings and then you go pursue the pirates or the poachers or the space monsters that are harassing the region, preventing you from being able to bring your ore home. Or if there's a war that's been outbroken in the area, you could attempt to barter peace in the area. Or you could use military force to push the conflict away from your troops or your iron so you could pull them in. But these are all different instances of adventures. Or you could have like an espionage mission where you're going to go in and try to assassinate the warlords that initiated the war. So that would be an espionage mission. And these are more traditional style adventuring that you would see at the character level of individuals. They could be in a squadron of fighter ships. They could be in a high skill heist crew. They could be dungeon delving experts with magics designed to be able to get into an asteroid and clear threats out, like a traditional dungeon delve under the motif of an asteroid delve. For the most part, the only thing that you really wouldn't see as a dungeon, as a character interaction, would be acquisitions. But acquisitions can create any number of new encounters. Like if you're attempting to acquire a new warship that can be a carrier for your fighter crews. Like if you want to create say you want to create a station out here in the fourth rank orbit, and it took you 1, 4, 5, 14, 30. It took you 30 points to establish this territory out here. 1, 4, 9, 16. It took a total of 30 points for you to establish this territory out here. Now you want to put a space station there so that you can defend this whole region from conflict. You now then have to go in and secure that area and keep and clear out any surrounding threats. That becomes a hex crawl adventure for characters and ships to go out to then secure the area around in space long enough to be able to secure that station. That station then becomes a new hub that you can then launch new missions out of for asteroids further out in orbit, or to attack different enemy territories. Those are some of the ideas that we're playing with. And if it susses out well and the action loop is good, we'll be able to build these things out to be a little bit more robust and build this into a drive-through RPG, like a Kickstarter thing or something. Who knows? So let's see, where are we at? So we're looking at acquisitions, and acquisitions for the most part is a downtime activity that we don't really expect. You have one free acquisition per 10-day cycle. And so like it could be I need a new team of third rank delvers. So you would then you would get a free roll. Third rank would be, what do I have of my difficulties? I've got rank as tasks, so rank equals difficulty. equals DC. So rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So difficulty tends to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And we know that difficulty 0 is a 1. Difficulty 1 is a 4. 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, 22, 25, 28, 31. That's your scale. So difficulty of 2 is 4 is a 7. And then 13, 16, 22. No, that doesn't feel right. Plus 6, there it is, 19. 25, 31. So there's your ranks of difficulty. So you get 1 free passive acquisition. What to do with acquisitions, territories. This is irrelevant. Yeah, no, that's relevant. Let's see. Roll for new acquisition based on rank of asset acquired. So in this instance, when you're doing an acquisition, you get 1 free roll. Like I want a new delve team, and we're say 3rd rank in commerce now. So I could hire or train a 3rd rank delving team, which means characters have 5 levels, and this would allow you to have basically a rank. So you'd be able to, for that free roll, you could hire a new 3rd rank delving team, which means everyone builds 3rd rank characters, which takes about 3 minutes to do. And then they have a new team that can go cracking into an asteroid with. And any other acquisition that you want to purchase per 10-day cycle is going to cost you resources. You get 1 free acquisition, but if you have the resources, you can purchase as many assets as you want based on their cost. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25 points apiece. Let's see. So if you roll the check, you get it for free. If you fail, or if it's your second, then you have to spend the points to get it. If you fail the check, you still get the asset that you were looking for, that you paid to get, but it comes with a complication that you have to resolve before you can make use of the asset that you required. So if we're looking at a 3rd rank delving team that your team picked up and you failed the die roll, 3rd rank 19, let's say you only rolled an 11. We know that an 11 is a difficulty of 3. It's 4, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is a 4th rank success. So a 3rd rank success when you're going for 6th, yes, you get your 3rd rank delving team, but because you only rolled an 11 on your die roll, that is a 3rd rank complication, which means until you resolve what that complication is, you can't have your delving team. Like, for example, we found a 3rd rank delving crew, but they're currently in a prison in the nation of Dargoon. So you can have them, but you're going to have to succeed at an espionage mission to rescue them from prison first. Otherwise, there's no one around. So, like, that's an example. Or, like, we can get you a new squadron of TIE fighters, but there is there's no one to crew the ships. So you're going to have to go rescue a crew of fighter pilots from a Dargoon prison before you can have those ships take flight. You could use the same conflict or complication for different tasks that you're trying to do. If your task that you're trying to acquire is a new territory, you can have the new territory, except you need to broker peace between the 2 warring factions that are adjacent to the territory that you're purchasing. Otherwise, you'll never be able to extract wealth from that territory because it's in the middle of a war zone. So you have to somehow get peace in that territory, but it's yours if you can. So you get it, but you don't get to use it. So that's kind of a kick in the teeth, right? So you're going to be rolling these tasks to acquire things, and it just creates more more adventures for you. And as you go through these adventures, you're acquiring new enemies, making new discoveries, getting access to new technology, new rituals, new resources, new allies, new locations, new information. And it just expands like a normal Hexcrawl campaign would expand. Except that we're just using ability checks to resolve everything inside of the game, instead of different types of combat versus exploration versus social engagement pillars using different action economy among the 3 different tasks that you're performing. It's all using the same ability check as your task resolution, regardless of what kind of adventure it is. Cool. Just making sure my mic is up. So acquisitions, roll for new acquisition based on rank of asset acquired. Success equals gain the resource desired without complication. Fail equals resource is in escrow until you can resolve the complications involving acquisition. Let's see. Rank, difficult, DC, and cost. I need to add cost. You can always get a 0 rank team for no cost. It doesn't cost any acquisition roll. It doesn't cost any resources, but they're horrible. They're horrible characters. And then every time the team completes a mission, they gain a point of their own resources to, like, after your team. If you start your team at first rank, if they start at 0 rank, 1 mission gets them the first rank. If they survived 1 mission, congratulations, you're now first rank. If you then survive 3 more missions, that team is second rank for free. If they survive a total of 9 missions, they are third rank for free. If that team gets wiped out, you could then spend 9 resources to purchase a new third rank team to continue on, but they'll be different characters. You just had to go out and acquire a new team. Or you could start all the way over again at 0, not spending any resources, and spend the time to build them back up in rank again. Or you could, say, purchase them at second rank for 4 points of resources, and then spend the 5 different adventures to get them up to third rank. And of course, the goal is to get the goal is whatever you want to make it in game. There are no goals. But the power cap is 5th rank. So once they get to 5th rank, you can always start with 5th rank assets. It's just going to cost you a shitload of resources to get them. So there you go. So I think that kind of cleans that up. Let's see, territory, prospecting, extracting. Oh, this is a challenge zone. Equals territory. A challenge zone equals hub. Challenge zone equals asteroid. So these challenge zones are like the different regions or spaces that the characters are operating inside of during an active mission. Each territory we describe here, this is a 10,000 mile block of ground that's covered, or sky that's covered in asteroids. Hub is the ring that orbits the planet, where all of the embassies, refineries, housing, and cities that basically support these mining operations have been built off world. Basically, keep your shit off world. So the team never goes to the world; they only operate in space or at hub. And so the ring of society is called hub, and there's no combat there. So if you're at hub and you have a conflict, it either has to be resolved through espionage or diplomacy. You can't use combat in hub. Combat is forbidden. It's kind of like in Blades in the Dark. You just can't kill things there. Out in free space, you absolutely can kill things. You can do anything in free space. So the challenge zone of hub, let's see, we have diplomacy. Oh, this could be acquisitions. Gaining new assets and territories. Espionage equals stealing information and assets from rivals. Like for example, if your team wants better mecha, you could advance your military to a point where your rank of military allows you to have access to better mecha that you would then make acquisition rolls with to hit the target number of the rank of military for the mecha that you want. Or you could run an espionage mission to steal the plans and means of developing those mecha from a rival organization that has access to that level of tech that you want. Kind of like in Civilization, when you can go into another civilization and steal their technology advancements to acquire reading for free or advanced military units for free or whatever, because you stole it. Espionage can be used to do that as well. So there's acquisition, espionage, and diplomacy. Equals resolve conflicts through negotiation. And then we have the challenge zone of an asteroid, which is extracting, which is gather resources from mining ore. There's delving. Equals remove a threat from mining operation completing. And there's combat. Which would be fighting monsters and poachers from those are the 3 zones I'm aware of right now. Oh, wait. Challenge zone, challenge zone. Challenge zone equals rival territory. Equals your territory. Rival territory is would be it would be combat equals stealing or resources from rivals. Espionage equals learn, gain information or assets from rivals. Diplomacy equals what's up? Hey game. You could include some rust monsters. Absolutely. Zorn and rust monsters is a great example of a type of creature that could be inside of an asteroid that's depleting the value of that asteroid. And unless your team goes in there, like maybe your team maybe it's it might just be a copper mine, not a big hitter, but maybe your team brings platinum or like bars of platinum with them as something that would smell really good to try to lure the rust monsters out of the asteroid into cages. And now you have a menagerie of rust monsters, or even Zorn or other type of creatures like earth elementals of all sorts that might eat rock and ore and value those things. You could capture them, and then you could use that as a resource or as an asset that you would then be able to deploy against an enemy. Like if you wanted to, oh, here we go, sabotage, steal or sabotage assets from rivals. Like I could dump, if like for example, the Dargoon, the nation of Dargoon, all their ships are mostly iron and copper or brass, so they have metallic ships. So if your team were to acquire those rust monsters, you would actually be able to use rust monsters to attack a Dargoon warlord by rusting out all his ships and eliminating ships from his fleet, weakening their military so that they wouldn't be able to defend their territory against you. So you would be able to use that as a strategy to say, if you wanted to like steal this particular zone of territory from Dargoon, you could start infecting their warlords with these metal-eating creatures that you captured out of an asteroid. You could also do things like undead, that like life-draining undead or ghouls or something. You could capture these undead and then unleash them onto an enemy, so that the enemy is now having to spend all their resources fighting undead while you're stealing all their crap. Like these are some of the different type of solutions that the team can come up with, depending on what they run into. Do I want to eliminate this threat, or do I want to try to acquire that threat to become an asset for myself? And that's the kind of things, like whenever a player is involved at the character level inside of an adventure, whatever they can pull out of that, they don't have to make any rolls to like acquire. If it's a passive thing, like I want to acquire a new team of fighter ships, if that's a passive task, then you're going to have your guild perform an acquisition check based on their rank of military to get those resources. But you could just as easily have the players decide to run an espionage mission where they're just going to steal a Star Destroyer and make it their own. Come and get it if you want, but we now own the Star Destroyer. It's ours now. So that's how they could acquire new resources that way as well. So, boss week. Yeah, exactly. That level of threat. An aboleth, using D&D terms, that's like what, like a CR 18 creature, I think. Let's look that up really quick. Aboleth 5e. Let's look one up real quick. Oh, CR10 threat. Okay, so a CR10 threat, that would be CR1, CR4, CR8, CR12. So this would be a rank 4 threat. So an aboleth would most likely be 1, 2, 3, an orbit out here at the 4th rank of orbit, about 40,000 miles away from hub. Pretty damn far out. By the time you're out there at the 4th rank of hub, we're looking at what kind of resources are out there. That's pretty far away from hub, so not a lot of operations are capable of operating at that distance. At the 4th rank in orbit, you can roll a d10 for the type of ore that you'll find in the asteroid. So it could be dead rock with it. Well, it won't be a 0 unless you have a penalty. But most likely it's going to be something. It could be anywhere from dragon shards all the way down to iron, but it's completely random. Like in the 5th rank, you roll a d12. So like 10, 11, 12. Like 10, 11, 12 would be dragon shards. Like tons of crystals in far orbit. But as you get closer and closer to hub, the more mundane the materials are as you get closer, because they're easier to get to, so it's cheaper, right? But at that aboleth rank, that's going to be like around mithril and Biesh level or platinum. Like you're going to be seeing these higher value ore resources out in orbit out here. So an aboleth would be totally possible. Like this is a 10,000 mile area. So I'm going to roll as a DM about once every 4 sessions. I'm going to roll what type of rocks are going to be in each of your territories next 10 day. And I'll know what's there, and then your team's going to do the scouting check and the prospecting check for each territory to find out how much of that information they actually gain and how much of it remains hidden. Yeah, I know there's adamantine that's coming into orbit in territory C, but you completely botched the die roll. So you don't actually know what's in there because your scryers, your clairvoyants can't pick up on it. So you know there's adamantine in there. So when they actually go there and check it out, yes, but there's also probably going to be a very high level monster that's layering there, because the higher level the ore, the higher risk creatures are attracted to it in true D&D game style. So yeah, Aboleth, 4th rank stuff. You're going to see that around really wealthy crap. And the closer to hub you get, the more of the material has been picked off. Here's your percentage left over. You're only going to have about 15 to 40% of the ore has like that much ore in it. As opposed to 5th rank, you could have a rock that's like 100%. It's just a giant rock of adamantine. Like 100% resources are still available there. And if you can extract all of that, here's how it works. If you have like a rock that's going through this zone, each 10 day, a rock goes from one zone to another and when it drops out of your zone, it's no longer safe for you to mine it. It becomes a free territory that anyone can go in and mine for themselves until like these are Dargoon territories. So if you try to mine resources inside the Dargoon territory, Dargoon can attack you without any recourse. You're poaching their land. They can kill you, and if you fight back, you're committing to war. So each 10 day, the rocks move from one position to the next in orbit. So if you have, say, 50% resources in A, and then it moves into B, and you still have 30% of the resources left, then you can pick at that. The results of your ability check is the percent of ore that you extract from a rock. So if you cash a rock out to 0, like if you had adamantine in territory A, but only 15% of the rock remained, then if you rolled a 17 on your die roll, if you're successful extracting the adamantine, there's nothing left when it goes into territory B. So that becomes a 0 resource square for that next 10-day cycle, because you've already spent all of the resources that were coming into it. So as you get further and further in orbit, you're going to want to chain together multiple territories so you can chew off 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, and now it's out. So if you can string 5 out here in far orbit, you can pull in 5 resources, and then in this chain, it's just, if you're a 5th rank commerce guild, you can gain up to 5 resources based on the metal. So 5 and then 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you have 15 territories that you could control, you could potentially be extracting like 30 resources per 10 day. But then you're going to be cycling through a ton of high-level things that are going to cost you 9, 16, 25 resources to acquire. So as you gain ranks, you have more territory, but you have to spend more points to replace the stuff that you lost during conflict. That's the idea behind it, though. But you only have to do these die rolls once every cycle. And so the idea is like every 3 game sessions of adventuring, the 4th session is a guild catch-up. And then we see how the world updates, and we do a maintenance adventure where we decide how all the resources are going to get allocated and what new complications arise, and how does the team then want to sally forth, and what do they want to approach, and what do they want to move forward personally for the next 3 weeks. Go for it. And then whatever they succeed at, they push forward. And then at the end of that, they'll go back. What did we let our guild do? Make our die rolls. Oh, fuck. They really screwed up negotiations. Now we have a risk of war on our border. Do we want to send espionage, a show of force through combat, or do we want to send our own characters as diplomats to then have a negotiation challenge of rotating between intimidation, persuasion, and deception to try to influence what we're dealing with? And every time we make our die roll, we're ticking down that clock to get through their opposition for them to eventually agree with us. Or if we fail a die roll, we're triggering new complications that stop all negotiations until the complication is resolved. I'd love to end this conflict with you, but it's not actually me. It's the warlord Khan and his mega mutants that are deciding to declare war on behalf of their sovereign state inside of our territory. I can't actually assure you peace until you deal with Khan. So go deal with that guy. Once you remove Khan from the board, I can promise you will have peace. That's how you would resolve complications through a negotiation diplomacy mission. And that gets you an opportunity to learn who new characters are, create new avenues of assets and new hooks and adventures and tasks that you can then build alliances with, so you can borrow off of each other to potentially like discount acquisitions, for instance. So, is it only illegal fight back when you're poaching in another territory? Yeah, if like this stripe here is between Droam and your territories, like this is open ground. So anyone can mine there, but if Droam is already mining there, if you want to go and mine, you're gonna have to push them out. And they could decide to go over war with you, but it doesn't mean you're wrong for doing it. It's in no one's territory, so it's whoever can take it. Might makes right. So if you're in your territory, you're in the right. If you're in their territory, they're in the right. If no one is in declared territory, it's just open season for whatever. So as the game goes on, Droam is going to be attempting to expand their territory. Arenell is going to attempt to expand theirs. Dargoon will attempt to expand theirs. Sarlona also expanding theirs. And there's other guilds that surround Hub. I don't have them shown here right now, but there's like 3 other factions that are also expanding territories that have their own game plan for how to advance their areas. And you are either going to try to take territory from them, or you're going to find them coming in and buying up territory in your area instead. So there's the 4 alien nations, and then there's the 3 factions. So there's 7 rivals on the board other than your guild that you're trying to negotiate and weave within to be able to build out and create your own success. If not, imagine making an army of stealthy, cheap mining robots that can go to other territories and mine. Well, you can, but it costs you resources to mine a territory that you don't control. You can mine territories for free in areas that you control. But if I want to mine this territory, it's going to cost me 1 resource because it's next to Hub, or 4 resources per 10 day to mine here, or 9 resources here. It gets really expensive to mine outside of your territory, because when you're in territory, the infrastructure is there, your patrol ships are there, and there's way stations inside these areas that makes it easy for you to transport goods to back to Hub, and to bring new workforces from Hub back to that territory, because it's an established pipeline. It's a supply chain that you've built. So if you want to snake all the way out here, you can either buy out territories to create a path to it, or you can just freewheel out there. And this is the territory, 1, 2, 3. It'll cost you 25 resources to mine that territory. Expensive as hell to do it, but if you've acquired a lot of resources, you could do it. So, but yeah, you could put in a fleet of things to go out there and do it, but it would have to be in close orbit for only 1 point for cheap labor robots, for instance, as you say. So it's just a matter of how many resources you have to spend. Like currently, the team we has at the very first adventure on Wednesday this week, they only have 3 resources to spend for their organization to do whatever they want. So they don't have a lot of resources available. They need to start expanding or stealing assets from other organizations so they can expand their territory quicker. But there is technically no end to the campaign. It's just how long do we have fun with it, and what kind of trouble do we cause, and what kind of adventure manifests from the malarkey that they cause. It's emergent gameplay, which is the style of Hexcrawl that first edition was really based on. No established plot line for a campaign save the world level 1 to 20. Instead, there's enough content here to take your characters from 0 to hero, and it's just a matter of what happens during the course of that progress that builds the story around the results of your teams. Because you can have multiple characters, multiple teams operating in different territories or in different industries, moving from territory to territory, and your guild as a whole, how large can they become? You could purchase other guilds. You could go bankrupt and get purchased by another guild. And now you're being assigned tasks until you can squirrel away enough resources to buy a new territory to start off on your own again. So even the fail state folds into you performing tasks. The game system is built around ability check and task challenges. So every horrible result that can happen to your team or your guild causes you to gain more tasks to perform. Success gives you more tasks to advance your goal. Failing gives you more tasks to get your head above water again so you can begin growing again. And if the narrative is fun and the team leans into building these things out and deciding what their values are and pursuing them, that can become an organic campaign that has no reason to end until they decide they just want to do something different. Hey, this was a fun thing to do for 9 months. Let's do something different now. Cool, this was fun. There you go. That's the ideas behind it. So it's all experimental right now, but they're all on board with it. So they recognize that it's a fast, loose narrative game style, and they're into it. So the last campaign that we ran was 5e from level 1 to 20, and that took 5 years for us to grind through that. And now that it's done, it's like, we want to switch gears. Let's do something different this time. So I've been building this guild system already on the side. This is the first live fire test I have with it. It just happens to be a Spelljammer eberron campaign. I could have made it a Enter the Abyss Underdark campaign where everyone was playing a house in, like, say, Minzo as a Drow army. And this is like you're a third-rank Drow house, and you're trying to gain power in Minzo society by overthrowing rival houses to become Loth's favorite. That could be a very viable guild delve campaign style of play, where you're like acquiring Driders and like Mind Flayer allies as consorts, and like making pacts with demons to acquire tieflings for your espionage teams. Blah blah blah. It could be any flavor that you want. If the mechanics end up working, we can build any kind of campaign theme in any environment at any scale that we want. It all works off of that difficulty scale of 1 to 10. So fluid, flexible system. Hey, congratulations! You are in the rare air of 3rd tier entering 4th tier gameplay. I've completed 3 campaigns from level 1 to 20 in 5e since 2018, and I spent maybe a decade at level 20 to 32 in 3rd edition, and I played a lot of Numenera between 3rd and 5th edition. So how much of the gameplay is regular role playing and combat, and how much is planning or to do things like these large scale? These large scale decisions are every 4 sessions. So for 3 sessions is normal D&D bullshit, and then the 4th session is guild updates. So, and the guild update is what seeds the next adventure plots. Everything is episodic. Right now, we're dealing with pirates. Once we resolve that threat, what's our guild been doing, and where's the next fire that we need to put out? No fires? Cool. Let's advance our own goals. Let's go steal some tech from the Earswifts, for instance. Whatever. But yeah, 3/4 of the time is normal dungeon delving. This is just, and technically all of this guild stuff can be done off during downtime during a text conversation. I just need somebody to roll. I just need 3 prospecting checks, 3 excavation checks, and 3 scouting checks. Because you control 3 territories. I need you to scout the territory, prospect the rocks, and extract ore. So I need 9 d20 die rolls. That's it. And once they give me those die rolls, I as a DM can go in and just use the math that we have here to process what are the rocks, how much of them are available, what was their success, and how many resources will they gain. Oh, they fucked up. Okay, so they don't get the Electrum. So territory B, 0 access. That one there's something wrong in territory B you need to go fix. And then I'll just determine what that threat is. So then they can decide to deal with themselves, or if they have multiple threats that they're dealing with, it's like, let's prioritize negotiating with Dargoon and leave that territory problem to our guild. So that would be a 10th die roll. It would be a separate die roll that they make as a downtime task. And if that succeeds, then they get their ore and they find out what the problem was, which could potentially launch a new adventure. Or that team fails as a passive check. Now the team has to go deal with it because it's escalating into a bigger problem that could affect other territories. So the die roll is basically, is there a new adventure here or is there not a new adventure here and we achieve our goals? So basically, each of these die rolls is potentially triggering a new plot hook. And if all the dice work out perfectly, they get all the things that they wanted, and now they can start spending those points to advance their team to basically like gain another level. And then the next time around, they spend their resources to get new things, and spending resources through acquisition can trigger new plot hooks. You can't have your new fighter squadron until you solve the labor dispute at the refinery that's holding up the platinum needed to make the ships, for instance. Whatever. So these are all the different things. I feel like the suggestion spell could absolutely wreck stuff in a world. Well, but suggestion, you could influence somebody for a moment, like in a long-term negotiation, like to gain access to a territory, for instance. You could suggest that they sign the charter, but it doesn't just happen right then and there. It's a 10-day process of ratifying, re-encouraging, making sure there's no brain magic happening so everyone has a clear vision and everyone's acting in good faith. So at the end of every 10 days, that's when it gets processed. A Geesh type effect where like you will sign this contract or you will wither away and die from cancer might actually work, but it would also instigate hostilities from anyone that catches sight of it. So you'd have to be really sly. That would actually be like to drop that thing on somebody. That would actually have to be an espionage mission, because if it becomes obvious that you've guessed or suggested your negotiation partners, you've just damaged your reputation of bartering and bad faith magic. And you're going to have difficulty getting any respect from anyone else you're ever going to have to negotiate with. Kind of like fairies don't break deals, because then no one will believe a fairy anymore. Like, you don't break your deals. You don't brain fuck people with magic at the negotiation table. Otherwise, when the magic eventually goes down, everyone will know what happened, and you are now going to be ostracized. So you in the moment, in a combat challenge, you could drop these type of spells on things to influence how they respond to you. But you can't do that. It's not a long-term solution. It just doesn't work. But I like how you're thinking. You could set that up. If you had two guilds that you didn't like that were negotiating, you could spoil that negotiation by framing one of those guilds for using Gesh and suggestion to manipulate it. And then they'd have to try to prove that they didn't. Meanwhile, you wrecked their negotiation. So that may have been a goal of yours. Like, you may not have been able to gain access to a territory until you prevented these two guys from becoming allies. That's what was blocking the territory. If those negotiations fall apart, they'll have no choice but to go with you. And so you have an inside edge that you learn this through another espionage mission or a negotiation someplace. This becomes your new plot hook. So it's just, there's a lot of real dynamic improvisation that happens here at basically all levels. So it's just really a matter of how do you want to run them. With how much raw material the players will probably have access to, the Fabricate spell could do some crazy stuff. But again, that's just you expending resources for you to be able to build out things. And you get one free build every 10 day. Your first acquisition check is free. So if you wanted to build new troops and mecha and take over a territory, two of those things are going to cost you resources. One of them won't cost any resources to try. And if you wanted to express it as, I'm going to use Fabricate to create new fighter craft, cool. Make your die roll and see how well you do it. Let's use lore because you're using your arcane magic skills, or let's use military because you have military engineers, or let's use commerce because you have access to a wizard guild that you can purchase to use that fabrication spell correctly with people that are trained to build these things. You could choose which industry you want to use depending on which one you think is more advantageous. But ultimately, it's going to dissolve down to a single die roll, in which you will succeed at the task, but if you fail the die roll, it creates a new complication. Yeah, you had wizards come in and use the Fabricate spell to create a new squadron of fighter craft. The only problem is that, I don't know, like, let's say, what would be an interesting challenge here? It turns out the guy that was hired to fabricate these things is actually a warlock. and they have been using overextended pact magic to trigger that fabricate spell, and now there's a demon that is possessing all of the ships that were fabricated. So now you have demonic issues with these ships. So you can use them, but now it corrupts whoever uses them. So now you have a fighter squadron that's becoming poisonous to your team. So yeah, but it's just you. If you fail the die roll, it creates a problem, and depending on how you resolve the task, frames what the problem is. And the only limitation on what that problem could be is previous history in the game. We now have demonic possession as an issue in your game. So at any time a complication crops up, it could be that demon fucking with you because you poked that bear. And now that demon has you on its radar and it sends forces after you. You now have to figure out a way to kill a demon. Is that a combat mission? Is that an espionage mission? Or are we going to try negotiating with it as a diplomacy mission? And we might have to send in some serious firepower into hell to go meet it at its doorstep, to knock on the door and ask it to leave us alone. Like, that could become an entire sub-campaign. That could take like 6 or 7 adventures to resolve. But once you do, you might find a way to make that demon your ally, or you might find a way to free everyone that was possessed by that demon. They now become your allies. So you just scooped in a ton of resources. Like the faction that's over here mining stuff, half of their operation could be Warlocks in cahoots with this demon, that were tricked into these contracts. So if you free them from that demon, suddenly all of this territory wants to work with your crew. You just doubled your territory because of the adventure that your team went on. You can acquire resources and assets faster as players in an adventure because you don't have a cap on how much stuff you can acquire. It's just a matter of how much can you hold on to once you incorporate it into your guild and you're making die rolls to cover these new territories. Can you keep hold of them, or do you have the infrastructure to do it? You might double in size for a little while only to find yourself whittling down to, in the end, only having gained 1 or 2 additional territories. Or like you gained a lot of lore with a lot of scions that are able to do deep astral projection, deep exploration in space to find what's happening out there. But they keep dying. Like they had a brain rot inside of them, so now they keep dying. So now you have to find a way to cure them of their brain rot, for instance. Blah, 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 blah. That's the cascade of complications that naturally occur inside of a D&D game. And that's what you call emergent. That's what's called emergent story, where the results of the die rolls are creating the complications. This is how hex crawls used to work in 1E, where you didn't know what you were stepping, that hex crawl. When you step into this new territory, there's random tables and inspiration that decide what is going on inside of that hex. And however the team decides to deal with that then explodes out into new problems that affect other territories or characters that they've been engaging with. That's emergent. That's emergent gameplay. So and it's very different from the 5e and the Dragonlance style of adventuring, where you're on an epic quest, where you already know what the storyline is, and you're just inserting your characters into that ride. And they're basically 5e adventures are really more interactive stories, almost like choose your own adventures, where you either succeed at the task, go to page 5, or you fail the task, go to page 15, but you're still, both 5 and 15 lead to 32. So you're eventually going to loop back to that. And that's called a structured adventure. And this open sandbox is where emergent gameplay comes from, where you don't care what the story is. Just go and fuck stuff up and see what you can build out of it. And if it's fun, if the characters get into it, they start deciding for themselves what's important. And then they build everything around what they think is important. And that is very different from another scenario where something else becomes important. Kind of like in those survival games, you know, if you get like a big shield effect, then you can tank a lot of damage. But if you don't random into a shield effect, you're weak. So maybe you got really powerful weapons instead. So you're easy to kill, but you kill stuff really easy too. So your defense is keeping things off of you. but that was a random survivor benefit that you got, like from like Deep Rock Galactic Survivor or Vampire Survivor, where you gain a level and you get 3 random options and you pick the best one for what you want to do. This emergent gameplay is kind of like that same style of play, but it's all narrative and ludonarrative, and the assets bend into the storyline that you're building as a result of failing or succeeding die rolls. So the update phase is important because that's where the next set of adventure plot hooks comes from. So you complete an adventure, there's a new nest of plot hooks for you to choose from, and then the rest of them evolve on their own without your involvement. They either resolve or get more difficult. So then when you resolve this adventure, you now have your new stack of plot hooks that you need to resolve. Fuck, this over here is escalating. I need to go focus on that before it gets off the rails. That means that these things here could also escalate in that time frame as well. These are parallel paths that are all advancing at the same time. Pretty advanced DM techniques, but that's how you use that used to be the base assumption of how a game would play at like level 5+ in the old BX style, BECME style of play. Once you get out into the overworld adventure, it was all open-ended like that, and all of this emergent gameplay is what built the campaign. Outside, and then you could drop dungeons into each individual hex to go into a dungeon delve if you wanted, or just stay surface and deal with the world threats that are on top of it. So my DM has a whole world open to its nights. It has a general storyline, right? But mostly it's been shaped around our characters. Excellent. Now we're on our way to fight a god, so we can free the pocket dimension we're in. About at what point did you guys start taking control and calling the shots on what your team would do? I know that it was always open, and there was a loose plot line. In my campaigns, it's like around level 8 or 9 that the players are strong enough and have a good enough idea what's going on that they start deciding how they want to dictate the adventure. They're no longer reacting. They're starting to dictate what the next task is going to be and what they want to do. They're strong enough to decide what's going to happen and then try to solve their problems instead of being fed problems like, here's your task, perform this. Like WotC, the way that WotC frames it is from level 1 to 20, you're always being told what to do next. Sandboxes and hex crawls and open end and immersive gameplay doesn't have a list of predefined tasks. It might have 1 or 2 tasks now and again that were created because of the results that you caused. But those are all little episodic vignettes of, here's the consequence of your actions, deal with this or things will get worse. That's not railroading or an adventure path. That's just logical consequences from actions you've taken, which is emergent gameplay. So, but yeah, you guys are level 16, so somewhere between like level 8 and 12 is probably where your team started to really call the shots. We want to go kill this god. We want to go free these people. This is where we want to prioritize our time, as opposed to whatever else it is that you could have been involved in. Like, this is where you decided, this is where the meat of our story is at. And once the team gets to that point, the DM is the one that becomes reactionary. It just feeds you consequences of your actions. In a 1 to 20 campaign, it takes a good 10 levels to build up enough background radiation of trouble that it can then just feed on itself through level 20. These are just kind of advanced game theory for DMing of how to seed and advance adventure plot lines. So, like when they decided to fight a group, the group we wanted to fight became part of the larger whole. The whole campaign was mostly following the DM's path, but said path did exist until you did things. Right, exactly. The DM creates a scenario as a launching pad to get the team enough momentum to start having opinions about how they want things to play out. And that's when they start taking the reins to call the shots. And that's when the DM can become reactive. And that's when that's where a lot of the fun of DMing comes in, is letting the team fuck up the world as much as they want. And the DM figures out how does the world make sense of their actions and what's the response that they have to it. So he just made the whole world. He just made a world and then wrote the story based on our actions. See, there you go. Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Excellent. Then good DM. Congratulations. I'm sure that's why it was able to last to level 16. Most games die around level 5 or 9 because there's not enough emotional investment from the players to be able to maintain that momentum beyond what the DM is capable of creating. So, excellent. It sounds like you guys are just absolutely killing it. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Nice. So, but holy crap. I don't know what happened to my timer, but I am way out of time. So, I got to bounce. But I'm going to be back. I'll be back and rant about this stuff a little bit tomorrow. And then I'll have my game on Wednesday, and I'll give some feedback and updates on Friday lunchtime as well. So, but that's it for now, guys. Me rambling through all this stuff with you actually helps me as a DM cement the game loop and things I expect to have happen in the game and how to resolve them. So it sounds like I'm just kind of rambling about stuff and shooting the shit with people, but this is all that like that understanding, me grokking the system and knowing what's going to happen inside of the game, so that I can know how to set things up. And every time we have an example of something, it adds a little bit more tools to my toolbox to be able to lay on to the team when things go wrong. So, yeah. And it's my lunch stream. I ramble about what I want. Once this game is up and running, we're going to switch gears and we're going to be dealing with the Ravnica Colorland Hex Crawl campaign. That's not at all like this, but we'll have some similar feelings to it. So, but that'll be in March. So we're going to be fucking around with this, this week. And then that'll be what, the 1st? Yeah, Friday the 1st. That'll be the last day that I'll provide periodic updates moving forward as the campaign continues. But I'm not sure how much time I'll maybe like once a month, or I don't know. We'll see. But once this campaign gets up and running, I'm going to just let it run. And then I'll come back with updates to you guys so you can see how it's coming along and how we had to change the game to stay in the thick of fun, and how that changes resolution and stuff. So this is kind of a work in progress. Once we get it to a point where my team is loving it, then that's something I can farm out to other people to play with as well. So, hey, thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. Super fun. Anyone else that's lurking out there, I'm here like all the time. I stream 10 day. I stream 10 different times per week, 6 days a week. I typically post something on Sundays as a video as well. So you can like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications of what I got going on in the future. And I'll be back tonight in about probably like about 4 some odd hours. We'll do some more Spelljammer artwork. We're building the Spelljammer book right now. We're dropping assets onto pages, and once all that's done, we'll be able to publish it. Hoping by the end of the week. So stay with me. See you guys soon. Laters.